So I saw this video that Daniel Greene did, and I'm going to link down below because it's really good, about his top 10 Matt Cauthon moments. And obviously lists like these are subjective in the extreme, but I thought it was a great list. He actually made a few lateral picks, and that was really interesting. And I thought I'd like to do a list like that because I am starved for new Wheel of Time content, and I think I'm going to feel that way for the rest of my life. I can't wait for the series to come out. I don't even care if the series is going to be awful at this point. I just want to see something. I've been waiting so long. I'm gonna try and not make it too spoilery. I mean, there are going to be spoilers, obviously, if I'm going to be talking about the top 10 moments, but I won't try and explain too much. So, you know, if you're a newbie and you haven't gotten there as yet, or if you're just planning to read the Wheel of Time, then I'm not going to give too much away. And if you've read the series, then you know what I'm talking about already. Number 10 would be the moment in A Memory of Light where Matt needs to find out how the fight is going, and so he wades into the battle, and Tuon comes by and she is waiting and she's watching, and he goes in and he fights and he has all these crazy moments in the fight, and then he comes out and he says very casually, Gareth Bryan is a dog friend. And everybody is just like, what? These are the kinds of scenes that I love for Matt because it is him just doing something that comes really natural to him, and at the same time he has an audience just to see how awesome he is. I love it when other people can see how awesome Matt is. I feel like they're always surprised, and they shouldn't be because he does awesome things on a regular basis. It's very satisfying. Number 9 is when he rescues Moiraine and he can't really believe it. You know, they've just emerged out of the tower, and he takes a moment and then he realizes that they're safe and they somehow made it. And he leaps to his feet and he starts taunting the snakes and the foxes. It always makes me laugh because it is so Matt. He knows he's safe and he figures that they can hear him and they'll be super duper furious about it. And so he does his little gloat dance. Like the other Matt scenes that Brandon Sanderson wrote, it's a tiny bit broad, or more broad than Robert Jordan would have written it, but it's still very funny. Number 8 is the scene when Elaine finally grants him an audience after he writes her the letter. Now, I know the fandom is sort of divided on whether the letter is funny or not. I really dislike the letter. It's dumb. There's no reason why Matt should sound that illiterate. Like, he's not the most literate person, I guess, but he wouldn't write like a 5-year-old either. And it really bothers me because I have friends who like to kid around and joke and pretend like they're dumber than they actually are. And it's a joke, you know, and I get the joke and I laugh along and we all sort of josh each other about it. But then there's always a moment where a third party comes along, tries to sort of get along with the group joke and the group dynamics, and actually thinks that my friends are stupid, and they give them a hard time and make fun of them or try to correct them in a very earnest manner. And it always pisses me off because my friends aren't stupid. They're just, you know, pretending. It's a joke, you guys. And that's basically Matt. You know, he doesn't really like people to know that he knows things or he's smarter than they assume, mainly because it gives him an advantage and he gets to go out and then absolutely blow their minds. But it really bothered me that Sanderson sort of bought into it. And I love Sanderson. I mean, check out my video above, but I really didn't like that scene. But Sanderson makes up for it right afterwards, because then Matt gets to go to the palace and Guybon basically asks him all these questions about his rumored awesomeness, and he's sort of going through a list of things that he's heard Matt has done, and he's clearly like, I'm not really sure this could have happened to you because it all sounds way too epic, but also I'm looking at you and I'm just like, you? And that's the whole vibe, you know. But as Matt is speaking and he's sort of ticking through the list and he's like, well, no, that's not exactly what happened. Oh no, like, okay, yeah, that happened. And he gets to the part where Guybon says that Matt met with death, and Matt sort of freezes a little bit because he's like, how did people know? Because of course they're talking about the snakes and the foxes, but they don't know that. And it completely changes how Guybon looks at Matt, because he's just like, wait, what? And like I said, I love it when other people in the books get to figure out just how awesome Matt is. Give Matt more credit. Okay, I know he gets a lot of credit, but still, I want to see more. Can you tell that Matt's my favorite? Just that much. NumberSeven is the point where he is chasing after Tuon, and he's given her a horse, and she doesn't know, and he doesn't know that it's a courting gift, but she does. And so she puts the horse through her paces, and Matt is furious, you know, because they're just alone in a forest and they don't know the terrain at all, and he's afraid that Tuon might hurt herself. And suddenly they find themselves in the middle of a hollow in the forest, and Tuon looks around and says, hey, what's the deal with this place? It feels a little different around here. And Matt's like, I don't know, it's a forest. And then he looks around and suddenly it just triggers something in his brain, and one of his memories comes flooding back to him, and he immediately envisions what that area looked like back when he knew it in a past life. And it's one of those things that Jordan did so well, where he describes this entire culture within the space of like a few paragraphs. And it's intricate and detailed and so incredibly evocative. You really do live an entire lifetime through the eyes of Matt in that one short sequence. And I love that for Matt. I know he doesn't really appreciate having all those memories stuffed in his brain until, you know, it helps him win battles, but I still like it. NumberSix is the first time that he meets Tuon. There's just something about it that cracks me up. I know the power dynamics of that meeting, and of course that entire sequence with Matt and the Queen are sort of really screwed up, and yes, I get it. But it's really funny that like Matt comes in all like, hey, what's up? And then this teeny tiny girl who he thinks might be a child walks up to him and sort of inspects him like he's a horse. Like she literally picks up pieces of his clothing and like does everything except like check his teeth. And he's so offended, but he can't say anything. And then Tuon just doesn't show anything on her face and just turns around and it's like, yeah, how much? I just imagine his face in that scene, and it cracks me up every single time. I know people really hate Tuon, but you have to admit the Matt and Tuon scenes, they're some of the best in the series. You just have to ignore the fact that, you know, she's a slaveholder and a slave trainer. Ew. NumberFive is the part where he kills Couladin. I just think it's really funny that Couladin just walks around trying to raid people and fight with people, and he's just like, yeah, I'm an Aiel warrior. And then entirely by chance, he runs into Matt, and Matt isn't even looking for a fight. He's trying to get away from the fight. And then he just runs into this group of people who are like, yeah, I guess we're gonna fight the Aiel. And he's like, no, you're not. You're a bunch of dummies. You're gonna get clobbered. And then he's like, fine, I'll help, I guess. And then he ends up killing Couladin and forming the Red Band right there on that spot. Things that can only happen to Matt. NumberFour is one of my all-time favorite Tuon and Matt scenes, which is when they run into Matt's army in the middle of nowhere because they've been tracking him, they've been trying to find him, and Tuon till then has been amused and exasperated and sort of dismissive and contemptuous about Matt. You know, she doesn't understand who he is, or she thinks she understands who he is. You know, he's a pretty face, he's a gambler, he does things that really annoy her. And then suddenly she sees him with his soldiers and she sees him take command, and she's like, holy shit, this guy is scary. And the thing is, he doesn't even do anything to impress her. Like, he's not trying or anything. He's just being Matt. His responsibilities caught up with him, and he's like, oh yeah, sure, I need to do this now. He's not even thinking about her. Like I said, that's the part of Matt that I really enjoy, or the Matt scenes that I really enjoy, which is when the audience gathers and it's just like, Matt. Number 3 is one of my lateral picks, which is, he's not really directly involved in the scene. It's actually a conversation that Brigitte has with Elaine and Nynaeve, where she explains to them that the reason why Matt is so antagonistic about them and is always so rude to them is not because he's a bad person or because he hates women or he is bothered by women in power. It's because they were rude to him first and they never apologized. I mean, the dude put his life in danger, and he doesn't even explain the extent to which he put his life in danger. He just told Brigitte that, he helped them out at one point and then they turned around and treated him like dirt. Didn't even say a thank you, and that pissed him off. And she was working off that assumption until she talked to the girls and she realized that he was not just rescuing them, but he was rescuing them from the Black Aja and a Forsaken and all kinds of creatures. And he did it by himself. And like Brigitte says, he didn't even mention all of that because that's who Matt is, It's such a good characterization, This is why I love Robert Jordan. He is really able to build a character and make you really understand who these people are at their best and at their most basic through tiny little details like that. I love it. Okay, number 2 is the boots scene. Now, this is a scene that I feel like a lot of people misunderstand because they think Matt was just putting on an act when he was like, oh, this is not really a philosophy, I'm just explaining about boots. But I don't think so. I think Matt honestly doesn't see it as a philosophy. He's just calling it like he sees it. He's not trying to be more interesting or obfuscate his actual feelings or putting on an act about how he's just this down-home boy. He is a down-home boy. That's why he's amazing. For those of you who read Terry Pratchett, it's kind of akin to Captain Sam Wine's Booth's theory of socioeconomic unfairness, but it's slightly different. And I don't know if it was based on that particular scene from Discworld, but I have to say it just really fits who Matt is as a character. Okay, and number 1, my all-time favorite Matt scene, the one that cemented my love for him, comes way early in the series, and it's when he kicks the butt of Gilad and Gawain. I really have no time for Elaine's brothers on a normal day, but in that particular scene, they were so condescending and such prats. I was really annoyed with Matt until that point, but even then I was like, Matt, you should go and kick their ass. And then he kicks their ass in the most amazing fashion. I've mentioned before that I love epic moments in fantasy, that I really want that pow. This is the POW scene to end all POW scenes. If you haven't read The Wheel of Time, I highly encourage you to read the first 3 books just so that you can read this particular scene. I'm not going to tell you where it comes, but it's worth it. And if you have read the series, you know how amazing it is. I mean, the guy gets up from a sick bed, walks on to this training field of like the best warriors of humankind and essentially kicks butt with a stick. To be honest, this was a kind of difficult video for me to do because I feel like there are way more than 10 amazing Matt moments, but this was the top 10 and this is how I feel today. I'm sure there are going to be other scenes that occur to me and maybe you can tell me in the comments about your favorite Matt scenes. But my top scene, the one where Matt is kicking their ass, I don't think that's ever going to change. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.